summit, mini summit series through a partnership with the Farm to Ohio Working Group. And the Farm to Ohio Working Group is a Sugar Bush Foundation funded initiative to develop our regional food network and strengthen our regional food system through institutional procurement of locally grown food and members working together to educate, implement stakeholder designed activities, connect needs and resources, and sustain a resilient local food system. So this summit is part of a summit series. And we wanted to also invite you all. The next summit will be with the Nature Conservancy. It happens March 30th at Baker Center at OU at 4:30 p.m. And that topic is sustainable agriculture, mimicking nature and promoting community. So it will be a really great event. And for folks who are interested in what we're going to talk about today, it might be of interest to you also. So I want to thank all of our panelists for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Susie Huser, who's our Director of Outreach at CFI. And huge thanks to Susie for organizing the panel and putting all of the logistics together. Susie's been at CFI since 2018, and she is a fabulous local food advocate, chef, artist, community builder, and all-around human being. And so I'm going to turn it over to her to introduce our panel.
Thank you, Ava. Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to our panelists for participating tonight. I'm just going to introduce them, and then we have some questions that we'll go through, and hopefully we can keep this a little bit casual and have a conversation as a group. I'll ask the panelists questions, and everyone will have a chance to answer. And if at any point you guys have questions, I think you can chime in too. But I'll introduce everyone. Dan Kneier began farming in 2002, apprenticing on small farms in New York and Virginia. He moved to Athens in 2003, where he managed the farm at Greenwich Gardens for 13 years. Currently, he is farm manager at Hocking College, where he is an instructor for aspiring farmers and gardeners in the agroecology program and grows excellent carrots, among other things. He has been a supporter of CFI through sharing expertise at gardening workshops and providing delicious produce at the donation station. Tanya Hire is the market manager for the Athens Farmers Market, certified through the Ohio Farmers Market Network. She has served in this role for the past 3 years. Raised on a self-sustaining local farm outside of Athens, she is a lifelong resident of Southeastern Ohio. Her day job is as an associate professor of instruction at Ohio University, where she teaches accounting and management courses. Prior to her faculty role, she served as an accountant and project manager within the VP for Finance and Administration offices at OU. Her work with the Athens Farmers Market allows her to apply her academic and professional skills in an environment that brings her back to her roots and celebrates her passion for Southeastern Ohio and all it has to offer. Lindsay Klaunig began working, is a market manager. Nope, sorry, my guys are skipping around. Lindsay Klaunig owns and manages Trouvaille Farm. I didn't check the pronunciation.
Oh, I think Trouvaille, but
Trouvaille. Trouvaille Farm in Athens, Ohio, where she grazes mixed livestock and grows specialty vegetables and heirloom seed crops. In the winter months, she makes artisan chocolate, which is very good, and other treats for local markets. Nick Tepe began working in Ohio libraries in 2000 at Columbus Metropolitan Library in Outreach Services Division. He worked in several different positions at CML, including as CML's first homework help center coordinator at the Linden Branch Library in 2004 and as circulation division manager from 2007 to 2011. He completed his Master of Library Science from Kent State University in 2005 and participated in the 2006 class of Library Leadership Ohio. He served on the Ohio Library Council's Intellectual Freedom Committee from 2010 to 2013, was a member of the Ohio Library Council's Board of Directors from 2013 to 2019, and was the chair of the board in 2018. He's currently the Ohio chapter counselor to the American Library Association. He was the director of the Chillicothe and Ross County Public Library from 2012 to 2016, and is currently director of the Athens County Public Libraries. Thank you all so much for participating again tonight. And we will just jump right in. The first question, and I can repeat, it's 2 parts. So just ask if you want me to repeat part of it. But tell us about the work you do with food and the role you play in the food system. How did you become interested in food access and urban poor?
I feel like I shouldn't be the one. So I feel like I'm in a bad joke. 3 farmers and a librarian. What is a librarian doing here? So libraries are fundamentally about connecting people to information and resources. That's what we do. And that speaks to how I got involved in food security, food insecurity. It goes back to one of my first jobs in Columbus at the Northside Branch Library on High Street, just south of Columbus U campus, where we did the summer free lunch program there. And we had a ton of kids from Wyland Park, just east of the library, very economically depressed part of Columbus, who were coming in for their lunches every single day. And I learned really quickly, these kids did not have access to food at home, period. And the library was their lifeline to food. It was their lifeline to so much more as well. They came in for the food, they stayed for programming, they stayed for the summer reading program, all of that. So that really kind of followed me throughout my career. Talking about the Homework Help Center, the Linden Library, we always had snacks for the kids because hungry kids can't think. So if they're coming to us to do their homework after school, we're going to give them snacks that we get going. I really started to leverage libraries getting more involved in the food infrastructure when I landed in Chillicothe. The Mid-Ohio Food Bank did produce distributions throughout the area, and they reached out to us to be a site for a produce distribution in Chillicothe, and we were very happy to do that. It was extraordinarily well attended all the time. We actually did it at several of our branch locations in Last County as well. And again, that's using the library's ability to connect people to the resources they need to help solve the problems, the challenges of food insecurity in the region. So when I landed here, there already was an existing relationship with CFI, with the Southeast Ohio Food Bank. We were already doing the summer food program. So I really just picked up where my predecessors left off and kept it going. But what it really comes down to is the library is a low bar to entry. People who are food insecure don't feel embarrassed coming to the library. So it's really easy for us to put a blessing box out where people can access food anonymously. It's really easy for us to put the donation station veggies out in our lobbies where people can just pick them up as they need them. And there's no judgment about whether or not they need them. It's really easy for somebody to come to the feast program and they don't have to worry about being judged that they don't know how to prepare good, healthy food for their families. Everybody's there for the same purpose, to learn how to do this and to get something cool in the process. So the way that we lower the bar, I think, really helps to close that gap. So that's what we do, and that's why I do it.
I grow things. So we don't actually grow a ton of food crops at my farm. I do grow grass, and I harvest it with cows. I grow some specialty crops like garlic, but mostly we grow seed. And so I'm in a seed group and we're like working on a slogan for how to say that like all of that seeds are baby food, but essentially it's like not baby food, like baby food. I don't know. But so it's, you know, just this idea, like I got into seeds and I'm getting more into growing seeds, like vegetable seeds, because it is like the basis of our food system, right? Like even grass seed is the basis of a pasture. And like you just, and when, you know, for me, when seed is controlled, then the food system is controlled, right? And we kind of have all backed ourselves into a corner where a lot of our food is controlled. And so seed sovereignty is a really big thing on my mind in terms of like open pollinated seeds that you can grow and nobody can. You can't own the genetics, you can't control the genetics, no patents, you know, no, not even hybrids, because hybrids you can't grow yourself, right? And so it's kind of my current interest, you know, in the food system. It's sort of like improving our food system. And then I make chocolate just because I need chocolate. I try to be careful with my sourcing. I source from like women-owned co-ops. I'm not strict on organic because I think organic's Organic certification to me is another way to control, actually. It comes from the government. It's consumer-based, like a market-based designation. And so as a grower, I don't certify right now, and I don't only buy certified. It's kind of mixed ethics for me. So yeah, well, that's where I'm at.
All right, so I manage the Athens Farmers Market. So I got a lot of food in front of me every Saturday, and especially during the peak seasons. So that's the herding the cats, like I like to refer to them at the farmers market. It's my main contribution to the local, to how I work with food. Making sure everybody's there, they're set up, ready to do business and serve the customers that come to the market. Like my bio mentioned, I grew up on a self-sustaining farm. So we had our own animals and our own fruits and vegetables that we raised. And that's what we would pack stuff into the cellar so that it lasts throughout the winter and that sort of thing. And so I, of course, growing up, I took that for granted. And then as I was in my early 20s and into my 30s, I kind of got away from thinking about how important food was and the sourcing of food was. But then as I got a little bit older, unfortunately, I had my kids young, so they missed out on the good food. But yeah, so, you know, then I started becoming a little more aware of, you know, what am I putting into my body, and being a little more cognizant of the choices I was making with my fruits and vegetables. And then, you know, the farmers market needed a market manager, and I was like, this just sounds perfect. It's going to put me right back to where I was when I was growing up. And I've loved every minute of, well, most minutes of it for the last 3 years. Yeah, local and just Southeastern Ohio in general. Anything that comes from Southeastern Ohio is like #1 on my list or anything. So I think it's really, really important to support our local economy, our local small businesses, which every farm is. And a lot of times people don't think as farms, as businesses, but that is exactly what they are. And also all the money that you spend at the farmers market goes back into Southeastern Ohio. So that's really, really important to me as well. And so I just really feel lucky that I'm able to play a role in it and help bring good food to people.
I am a grower of food as well. So most of my farming career has been mostly vegetables, either certified organic vegetables or not certified, but ecologically farmed vegetables, or whatever kind of label you want to put on it. And in my current role at Hocking College, I've been able to blend that growing with teaching the students that want to learn about that situation and add those skills to their lives in whatever way they see fit. So that's the main thing that I've done for most of my career once I got into farming, was either growing it and preparing it for sale, or trying to teach others that are interested in learning it. In my primary 2 roles. In terms of how I got into it, originally, I did not grow up on a farm. It wasn't until I don't think I grew a single plant until I was 25 years old. I had 0. We never had a garden growing up. We were as opposite from a self-sustaining farm as you can get. So my 20s and 30s were all like getting back to, back to the lander ethic of some sort. I was a vegetarian for a period of time, a vegan for a period of time. And interestingly enough, when I began farming is when I started eating meat again. I basically got more comfortable with this. As I got into farming and the cycle of life and death, it became a little more natural and comfortable for me to include that. And so I think farming has been that for me in many ways, just kind of changed my perspective over time. And so the reasons I got into it were very idealized on a certain level and romantic, but as I actually started making it a part of my daily experience, farming definitely changed me way more than the other way around, sure. And it's been a real exciting ride. I'm still rearing to go for as long as my body will take it.
Thank you. This isn't on the question list, but all of your responses made me wonder if any of you remember an experience, or a specific experience that made you think like, food is important. This is something that I want to make a difference with my life. I want to do something with it, or I can't use it.
That strikes me as two different questions,
Okay.
but I haven't answered them both.
Okay.
So, I mean, the reason why I'm a librarian is because I want to help people. I want to help people be successful in their lives. And so that's what really drives me in the question of food security. Because when I land at a new library system, I sort of take a look around and say, well, what do people need in this community? And the need in Southeast Ohio for food is immense for secure access to good, healthy food. It's insane that we have so many food deserts in Athens County where we've got all of these farms. And that's part of the reason why I hired what CFI does is to try and bridge that gap. But in terms of my earliest memory of it, I'm actually in the opposite boat from you. Our family had a garden the entire time I was growing up, a pretty good sized garden, and we would grow multiple different crops: corn, beans, broccoli, carrots, lettuce, strawberries, you name it, we were growing it, and then we were freezing it, we were putting it up as well. So I've had a really close contact from an early age with the food that I was eating. I saw where it came from, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, my story is more like Dan's, or maybe even worse. I grew up in the suburbs. I had hamsters. I didn't touch a chicken until my first farm job. I had to collect eggs, and I was like, oh no. So for me, it was like fortuitous. I got into food like through restaurant work. So I worked in restaurants to get through college, which I dropped out of, and high school, which I didn't finish, and all that. So indoors is not for me. And so it was fortuitous. I was like bar backing, and somebody left a WOOF catalog, WOOF with Willing Workers and Organic Farms, like on the table instead of a tip. But I looked through it. So the catalog is like opportunities, for those who don't know, where you can like go travel and live on farms and work trade, where you can stay there and you just learn, and it can be a weekend, or for me a lot of times it ended up being the whole summer. And so I woofed through my 20s. I immediately dropped out of college, and I was like, I can just go woof for the rest of my life. And so I like moved out to Washington. I was in India. I moved out to like Washington State to pick blueberries, and I like didn't realize that would end. So I had a plan after like July. They're like, you could go now. Blueberries. And I was like, no. So I ended up flipping cheese in town. I got a job flipping cheese at a creamery, and I loved it. It was just all day long inside the, sensory deprivation cave with cheese. And they were like, if you like this, you should like this. It was just like a bunch of lucky breaks and escapes for me. But then like once you're in it, you see, the longer you're in it, coming back, getting close to 20 years in. And that's where you start to see like the issue with the longevity of it. So I've lived in a lot of really fortunate communities, like St. Martha's Vineyard and Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I'm just very grateful to be here. We're fortunate in other ways, but it's nice to be here and feel like I'm on track to actually getting food to people who are similar to me in socioeconomic status, which, I am on Medicaid, you know what I mean? As a farmer, like my kid qualifies for free lunch. And that it was a little depressing being there and making food open. Me, right? I can't afford my own food, right? That's a bummer. So I'm happy to be here where it feels.
Yeah, I don't know if any specific moments, you know, it was kind of been it was ingrained in me. Like I said, I didn't appreciate it so much when I was out there having to weed the garden at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with the sun beating down on me, or doing the hay or the firewood to get ready for winter and that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. And honestly, they advertised the market manager position on the radio, and I heard the advertisement for it and it gave me goosebumps, and that's why I was like, I've got to be a part of this. I don't know. So that was my most recent, I guess, moment that brought me back to my roots. And
What if not growing up on a farm once in a while?
yeah, right. Yeah. That's a good point. Looking back though, I miss, I really miss it. I just wish I would have appreciated it at the time, rather than fighting with my parents and my brothers and sisters about who has to do what. You weed the potatoes, I'm gonna weed the carrots. No.
Like mine. He's like, I'm gonna go live in a city and be a dancer.
Yeah, the moment, I guess like you, there's no say particular moment, but one of my majors in college was sociology. And as I studied culture and economic systems, there's definitely something in me that strives for justice and some kind of more equitable way to live, and wanted to be a part of the solution somehow. And so for me, in those formative years, and then as I got beyond college, it seemed, because I loved being outside essentially, and I definitely fell in love with working outdoors. And so I was like, well, if I can combine working outdoors with a passion of living what seemed to me a more just life, or a life that didn't contribute to some of the problems that I saw that seemed to be a good way to go. So that's motivated me a lot over the years.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging. I have a random question. How does your work support equitable access to local food, and what does equitable access look like to you?
I can start, yeah. At this point, thanks to CFI. So I'd say a significant portion of what we grow at Hocking College ends up, we go to CFI pretty much every week with whatever extra we don't sell through the campus and other means that we're looking at. So it's fantastic because the students get an experience growing it and picking it and preparing it, and then we sell what we can, and whatever overage we have this wonderful organization that's able to take it and distribute it to the right places, like the library or wherever else, so that folks who can't afford it are able to have access to it. Equitable food system. I think for me, being in the teaching end of things, I think a lot of us, and I was certainly that way growing up, have just lost any sort of skill or understanding of how to grow anything or have any sort of relationship with soil and plants and how they get in front of our faces in the form of dairy or meat or vegetables or fruits or whatever our meals are. And so I think one of the big things for me that hopefully I can be a part of is trying to expand the number of people that have those skills so they can take that wherever they go in their lives. And for me, it's just, it doesn't have to be everyone does their own self-sufficient farm. And, you know, if you just learn to grow a potted tomato plant on your porch or some herbs on your windowsill, maybe you do have room for a small garden wherever you live, but whatever level you can do it at, to me, it's worthwhile. And if we're going to talk dreams and pie in the skies might be it, but I hope, particularly with my girl, I have three daughters, and 2 of them are in middle high school, kind of getting to those years where they're learning skills like this. And to have, I would love to see a day when, along with a driver's license being a sort of a rite of passage to those teen years, I would love to see you don't get to graduate high school till you can grow a plant or raise a chicken or an egg, or I don't know, whatever the example would be. But I feel like it's that important that we all should be in touch with it on some level, even if it's a small level. So that's, yeah.
So the Athens Farmers Market supports equitable, maybe is not the right word, I don't know. It supports access to food to a variety of economic bands. We do accept SNAP, and so our customers that are on SNAP are able to come to the market. And because they're from smaller farms, it is a little pricier sometimes, not all the time, than the supermarket. And they can match their SNAP benefits up to $25, so they can actually get $50 they can double their money up to $50. So that's, I think, a huge benefit for them. We need to get the word out a little more about that. Most of our customers come from the Athens zip code. We do track that. So one of my goals, and it has been, and the CFI's trying to work with me a little bit on somehow to take the market into the outlying communities somehow, whether it's, you know, once a month or once a year or whatever, but because unfortunately in the rural area, transportation is a huge problem for a lot of people that live outside of the city itself. So we do that. We also accept women, infant, and children's Farmers Market Nutrition Program coupons, the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition coupons. The last few years, they've had a temporary assistance for needy family set of coupons. And so we participate in as many of those programs that are either state or federally funded as we can to help with the equitable access. Also just the ability that we bring things to a central location that people can come to and have that wide variety of different foods to choose from, rather than having to go to this farm to get that and run out there to this farm to get that. At least, you know, we've centralized it to a certain extent. Again, because where we are, that centralization is not always a benefit to everybody, especially in the outlying areas where unfortunately food deserts exist, because East State Street is not a food desert. But yeah, so that, to me, that's, I guess I kind of answered both questions. It's how, and you know, thank goodness for CFI, right? If we didn't have that, then the smaller communities in our county would have no access to the fresh foods. But I would really love a way to figure out how the farmers market can play a bigger role in going out to those outlying communities, so that there is some outlet other than East State Street, Athens, Ohio.
So for an equitable food system, for me, I'm gonna like back up a little. I think it should just be that eating healthy should be cheap, you know, and affordable, and it shouldn't. And there's lots of systemic reasons that I'm sure most people in this room are aware of, but like overall, just we really do as a country choose to favor and incentivize subsidize craft food. You know, we just do in bigger industries, and just like, even if you would just level the playing field, make it better, right? And it's a value decision when you do that, right? You're choosing, that's a value. And so I don't know the solutions for that. But I would say, like, on my end, I think about that a lot. It does get me down big time, because I don't know how to grow stuff much cheaper without help or subsidy, first of all, you know, and so I'm not sure what I can do on my end, and that does bother me. Because again, we're barely, you know, and all it takes is one bad year and we're done. Like, we will have to go to jobs, you know, like, and a bad year is a pretty good possibility coming up, you know. And so we try to diversify so we can survive, you know, what kind of bad year it is otherwise. But like, that's always just around the corner. And most farmers, I know that's the case, right? You see them drop out, right? And so so it's like almost the farmers that are doing it for a living, it gets really hard to access anybody but the people who can pay more. And one of the reasons you have to pay more is because you have to compensate for all the loss and failure, right? So like, you're not just paying to grow that head of garlic, you're paying to grow that head and the 2 other heads that didn't make it because it was this temperature, this time of year, whatever dried up. And so that's kind of getting in the weeds, but like, that's, to me, some of the issues. I would love to be getting my food to folks, but I can't donate them, you know? And I know there's some good programs with like CFI and Rural Action where people will come and harvest and all that, but it actually does require some admin from me to like make that happen. And I just don't have it, you know? I'm just like, I barely eat dinner in the summer, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have it. And so I'm trying to figure that out because it is important to me. I could do it in the winter, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to figure it in the winter. So I'm trying to figure that out. But what we're doing, yeah, I mean, I might be skipping to the next question, but it's on my mind, so if you don't mind. Okay, so a thought for me is like you're saying, there's this food desert. I'm not in shade, right? So it is kind of a hassle to get to town, right? It is, and like a lot of folks that you say don't have the transportation. I would love to be able to see my neighbors, and that would be a big deal, right? Because there's a lot of folks I saw when the pandemic happened and all the kids got free lunch, the school bus came and dropped off lunches. The bus driver was like, if you ever don't want your lunch, those kids don't really need it. You know what I mean? And I want to like get food to those folks. They have SNAP, they have WIC. I don't know how to accept that myself. I heard it's complicated. So I'm like looking into programs where I could have a farm stand where I accept like WIC, SNAP, and that kind of thing from my place and just feed 20 neighborhood families. And that'd be funny, right? And with maybe some grant money or something. But I mean, I think I could make my prices okay because currently I sell my vegetables wholesale to Kindred, and my wholesale prices are affordable, right? And I don't go to farmers market just because I already work 6 days a week. So I do wholesale for that. But anyway, those are some things I think about in terms of solutions where like, if I could benefit from that kind of thing and I could tell my neighbors and somebody could maybe help promote that, that's not me, could help promote that and get that information out and help me set up a system where I could be circular. That would be really cool. And I would grow more vegetables. I would grow a whole, you know, the offerings because we grow that for ourselves. We make that affordable season.
I mean, Lindsay basically covered everything I would have said. So
in terms of space, like the plate, getting it out.
Well, yes, yeah. but I mean, what equitable access looks like to me is it's insanity to me that to eat real food in this country, you have to be rich. That just does not make sense on any level. I mean, this is outside of the scope of library work, but you know, just looking at the systemic piece of it, it should not be the case that you have to be rich to eat real food. I mean, real food is what we should all be eating. And I do think that long term, we do have to look at the local food systems in that way. We need to look at the smallholding farmers who can feed their neighbors, because that is ultimately, I think, the model that is going to be sustainable for everybody in the long term. We can't continue to rely on this industrialized, fossil fuel driven, processed food driven food system. This is not going to keep us going for the long term. It's not going to keep anybody going for the long term. Now, how to get there? That's a really good question. And you know, certainly in my work as a librarian right now, I really feel like I'm putting a patch on. You know, the nice thing about the library, going back to what do I do for equitable access, is we're open to everybody. Everybody can come into the library. Everybody has access to the food that's put out on the table there. Everybody has access to the blessing box. There's no barrier to entry at the library. That's what I'm doing to try to make food access equitable. It's not enough. It will never be. So we are talking about systemic changes here. Or if there's anything I can do to help you figure out how to do that, let me know.
Yeah, and I guess I think about it too a little bit now that, you know, like I said, that period in my 20s and 30s where I didn't really think so much of it. I was in the same boat as you. I had 2 kids, 1 income that's just, you know, so I wasn't as conscientious about the foods. I was just getting as much as I could to feed as many mouths as I could for as long as I could. And then of course time, and I had this revelation when I did the, what was that, train the trainer thing with Mary Beth. I was like, time. So like we talked, kind of alluded to with Nick, and taking the time to be able to prepare fresh foods versus throwing something into a microwave. But you know, time was a huge restriction for me as well when my kids were growing up. You know, working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, trying to have the money so that you could at least put some food on the table. So yeah, so there's, you know, it's messed up. It's really, really messed up.
Well,
I'm not happy.
you started this, but what do you, and I don't know if this is even very answerable, but what are some things that you think need to happen in order to make a better food system, a more equitable food system? And are there key things, are there big things, are there little things that would just like shift something a little bit? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
I definitely want to reiterate, so it was similar to my experience at Green Edge Gardens all those years, the Lindsay experience in terms of, for most small scale farmers to make a living wage, most of them are back into that. They need to sell their things to upper middle class and whatever, and that socioeconomic strata to make a living for themselves. And even with that, it's really hard, even at that level. So it is a massive hurdle. Well, one of the things that comes to mind, I don't know if it's a tweak or a major shift, but there is, you alluded to it, Lindsay, a little bit, but there is a massive subsidy system that already exists, that a farm bill that gets passed every 4 years with like billions of dollars.
Right, they call it the farm bill
and there is, and right now, what is the values and the priorities in this farm are geared towards more big ag and things that are sustaining the system we currently have. There are some corners of it that are starting to shift a little bit towards smaller farms. So you can, if you are a really good record keeper, and the subsidy program that used to exist exclusively for corn, soy, cotton, the big commodities, you can now get as a vegetable grower. You can get subsidies. Like if you lose something in a weather event or have some, you can get subsidized for that. The amount of paperwork you to do that is insane, but it does exist. I'm not saying it's working.
Well, in scale.
In scale.
I looked into it and that you're going to get 50.
Wow.
Unless I have to pay to upgrade that program, so, I have to pay for this.
Right. Yeah, there is you pay into it and get back.
Yeah.
You have to have, there's a lot of
exactly. So you're right, does exist.
It does exist.
2 acres.
Right.
It makes sense.
Very true.
Yeah.
Well, for us at Green Edge, we could have done it on some level, and it may have made sense. But you're right, we never actually did it, so that's a good sign that I was interested.
Yeah, they could have
the other thing that does exist, but again, it's like a dark corner of the farm bill that hopefully would get really, again, a tweak that maybe get really expanded, is the NRCS has programs that you can apply for and be part of for a period of years, that if you can demonstrate you're doing these conservation practices on your farm, which a lot of ecological farms are doing anyway, because that's what they believe in and it's what they're doing. So things like pollinator plantings and variety, like diversity of species and all this, you can sign up for these programs, and per acre or even per quarter acre, you can be subsidized by the government in anywhere from hundreds to thousands of dollars per acre. It's more so given, when I looked at it recently, I was like, wow, that's not what I thought. And it does, it's an underutilized program that is out there. So I guess part of what maybe I would hope would happen one day is a lot of that stuff would flip, where a lot of the small scale farmers could be a larger priority of that government food subsidy system that could help give farmers a living wage so that they can produce what needs to be produced and sell it at a wage that can access a little more readily. I don't know the viability of it. That's what there's a little more government support, but the system that already exists in the years of such as it could change its priorities and incentivize good growing practices. I think it's a big thing. So many farmers, especially in the small scale ecological farming sector, are already doing these things, and that are really beneficial to the environment, whether it's, banking soil carbon. That's, if they're creating farmland that actually takes water into the soil when it rains, as opposed to running off. And I don't know if you guys notice around here, but every time it rains like an inch, there's flooding like everywhere. And yeah, some of that has to do with concrete, but a lot of it is agricultural fields are ridiculously compacted everywhere. Water hits it and just runs. And it would be a huge benefit. I'm getting off topic of food access, but just general like flood mitigation. If farms were incentivized to deal with their compaction issues and bank more soil carbon and pay for that service, then that would do a lot for us. Yeah,
I love it. And I feel like, have you found that there's kind of like a lot of new little like enterprises coming out of that, trying to get farmers topic soil restoration? Yeah, and it's neat.
Yeah, so there's two different, there's Equip and then I can't remember the acronym for the other one, but CSP, yeah, CSP. So the Equip program is very utilized right now, and it's hard to get into. The CSP is very underutilized. A lot of counties have all this money that no one's asking for. So I know I'm going there soon. Hopefully get some help with that. Get some things.
Mostly, I'm thinking that I love hearing people who are knowledgeable about this stuff really kind of start to jam on what might actually work. It's like, if only we could get more folks in the room talking about this sort of stuff. Because
there's the growing piece, and then there's like the getting it.
Right, and that's the trick. Sometimes I feel like I grow it, and then it's like someone could harvest it right now, and I don't want to have a conversation. I want to show up and and it's like get it to people somehow, and there's like it's the whole chain, right? And I'm happy to grow it, but I can't do much more, right? And it's that piece.
Yeah, that was a huge deal for Green Edge too, being every step in the process, including the grower, the packager, the deliverer, keep having to drive to Columbus 2 times a week. I mean, it's just, being every step is challenging. Yeah, more cooperation than that. There are some, I know up in Wisconsin, Minnesota area, like those Nordic peoples are just better at cooperating. They seem to have formed these large scale co-ops that are starting to provide these distribution services where farms can, like you said, be the growers and backers, and then this cooperative distribution network picks it up at their farm, so they don't have to be that piece. Recently, I've heard about, through the book you gave me, was the African American community, a lot of times rooted in their own cultural, like way back in Africa, have a super cooperative nature and have developed a lot of really amazing organizations. And for whatever reason, around here, I mean, it's been talked about forever around here. It's been just get everybody on the same page about it. To get the cooperative nature of things going. But it might just have to, it might not be put all our feelings aside and just make it happen.
There was a good work for either of you in the workshop at Oakland that was about cooperative or cooperative farming.
I didn't, I regretted it. It sounded good.
It
Yeah, no. Did you sit in on it?
I did.
Any good takeaways in terms of like downfall, like what works?
I mean, they just talked about all of the different ways that you can share, and they talked about like risks and benefits of different models. I mean, even as simple as like going in with anybody else who wants to buy seed, and like, I mean, some of the things are really simple.
Truly, like both buying together.
Both buying.
I know, I was shocked that wasn't happening actually. Every other agricultural community I've lived in has had both buying. And I was like, maybe I just don't know about it, but I don't know.
And actually, now that you say that, I'm surprised the farmers market doesn't have something like that. Why don't we have something like that? Well, that's crazy.
There we go.
But again, so now I'm going to be the example of this is why, yeah, exactly. So how many, and this is what all the farmers go through, as well as you guys were both already alluding to. We've only got two hands, one body, right? And you have to play all the roles in the process from start to finish. And it's very, very challenging to manage that. So that's what. So again, like we were talking about the sharing, so even some of the, well, when we so I wanted to try to get the farmers market to go out to the communities last year. And so I did a survey with our farmers. I'm like, well, what is your biggest challenge with being able to do it? And time. We don't have the time to harvest and then take it out there, set up for 3 or 4 hours or whatever it would be. Break it back down, come back home another day in our week. We already do it Saturday, some of them do it Wednesdays. That would just be an extra day, basically. It takes out of your week to get everything else done that you need to get done. So I think, yeah, if we could figure out more sharing opportunities, whether it's in buying stuff or just getting stuff done. I think that would be beneficial. And then I was actually going to piggyback off of Daniel's idea that to graduate high school, you have to know how to grow a plant. I mean, or raise something, but I just think an appreciation, we need to culturally, or what's the word I'm looking for, the United States as a whole, we need to better appreciate where our food comes from, how it gets to us, and then maybe people would be like, and then how easy it, like just grow an herb on your kitchen windsill. And windsill, if that's all you can, have room for, time for, whatever, or a tomato plant, or just these like those kinds of little things. Everybody should have a vegetable plant in their house. I don't know.
Well, and that ties into what I was going to come at it from the opposite end of from the consumer side as well, to talk about. And part of the reason why I'm thinking this way is because this is what we're already doing. But I think one of the most important things we can do to change this is to teach the kids to want good, healthy food. And the way to do that is to put it in front of them and to show them that, oh, when you get this actual fresh tomato that was grown in somebody's garden, as opposed to the thing that was imported from Mexico and is like pale red and barely tastes like anything. If you can get that in front of them and show them this is actually something that tastes really good, and you can get them wanting that and understanding that this is something that I can prepare, that I can cook, that I can eat, that I enjoy, then they're going to desire that. And then they are going to take steps to try to find that themselves as well in the future. And that's one of the ways to start to shift that systemic by creating the demand for the good real food, as opposed to running down to the corner store and getting a bag of Doritos. To understand that no, this stuff actually not only does it taste good, but it's good for me, and I feel better when eating this stuff. Then they seek out the farmers market. They seek out the farmers. They start demanding, once they become adults, of their legislators, we need better access to this food.
And thank God for, is it CFI that does the program for schools?
Oh, that was LHA.
Live Healthy Appalachia. Yeah. That's right. So yeah, Live Healthy Appalachia.
Yeah,
which I didn't know anything about until my kids went through it. I was like, oh wow.
What did they do? My kid was like, look, it's not tea. I was like, it helps when it's friendly.
Oh yeah, yeah. When it's a
right. Exactly.
To your point, Nick, right? I'm Nick also. Yeah. So I remember terrible things, but a lot of that cheap food, it's like engineered to be almost addictive though too. So it's all sugary and stuff. So you give them the good food, they're like, oh, this is crap, this is garbage, because they want the other stuff though. So that there's a big challenge in that.
Yeah, it takes time. One of the things that really sticks out in my mind though was it's not quite local food, so it's not a perfect story for this, but we were doing a program at the Chancey Library with Julie Paxton's class on the economics of altruism. And the way that we worked it out there was for the kids who were learning about what it's like to grow up, the students, the OU students who were learning what it's like to grow up in poverty, came and did a program at the library to benefit the kids at the library, so that way they're not just doing poor people tourism. And what they came up with was they called it Cooks and Books. And so these students, many of whom were international, would share a dish from their cultural heritage with the kids and show them how to prepare it. And one of the people cooked up plantains. And this kid came into the program, tried the plantains. He was so over the moon about it. He ran home, grabbed his parents, dragged them back down to the library, said, you've got to try this. This is awesome. So you're right that if you put like a pile of green beans in front of them, they're probably not going to go for that right away, but you can find a hook. Yeah. And if you can find a hook, then you can keep bringing them back and hopefully try to reel them in. I'm an optimist. I've got a big concrete wall of realism behind that optimism, but I'm going to keep trying. So.
Kind of brings up school lunch. So,
yeah,
that comes up in my head a lot. I get kind of down about what the kids eat at school. Similarly, because you are coordinating your taste. So like when I let my kid do school lunch, like his taste changes. And then I get him back in summer, sort of, and I can like get him eating stuff again. But it really does. And the schools have some level of decision making. They can change vendors. And our school, my kid goes to Alexander District, and they love to pride themselves on like, we cut $800,000 out of the school lunch budget. And you're like, oh, what did you lose? You know what I mean? And that kind of stuff. And I've talked to the head of the whatever that is, nutrition department, whatever they say, and he's just like, well, the kids don't want it. They don't want it. And it's kind of like, do we let them choose anything else? You know what I mean? They don't want that. So anyways, but I just think that's interesting. I have no idea how to tackle it. I know a lot of people are, and I know there's programs where the schools buy from farmers. I know that exists. And so, and I don't know what prices are like or what that is. I don't know how that is as a farmer. Like I'd be super interested, but it's just like more for I think I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm just saying I don't know.
Same boat as farmers, like
exactly.
They don't have any
cheap. Yeah. I know there's some grants that help, and those are kinds of laughs, but that would feel super amazing. I could be feeding the local kids. I would just do that if I could. Right. You know what I mean? And if it makes
what a great service.
I mean, if the price would make sense.
That's probably the only way to be able to do what Nick was saying is to be able to, on a more mass level, is to do one kid at a time. My goodness, you know, we would never get any. I mean, we would. Small steps count.
Yeah.
But I mean, to do it more of a mass. Yeah. Why do kids? It doesn't matter that they want pizza. It doesn't matter.
Well, I know why, because it's gonna end up in the garbage. Well, I mean, I know that George Wood had set that up at Hawk, where he was sourcing the food local. I don't know if that's continued under the new superintendent.
You know, I think that's neat, but I get it. It's like on their end, it's more prep. They have a lot of stuff that they just throw in the fryer. I get it. Like, so it would have to have like a whole, you have to value it, right? Whoever's in charge has to value it. It's less.
Yeah, I guess.
At 6:00, we're at 6:01.
Oh.
What a good conversation.
Yeah.
So, if people need to go, you can go. If you have time for 5 minutes,
Yeah. You guys didn't get to talk out there. Of course, I'm used to that with my classes. I'm like, questions.
I just want to say thank you. I didn't go to OPA, but it's like I went. Thank you.
I will share for the optimists in the room. I teach in the Work Healthy Kids program, and for the most part, they love trying.
Yeah.
Such a great program. And you get really good feedback where they're like, I actually really want that borscht.
Oh.
Yeah,
Only we can run the world and maybe fix up.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Have a good day.